Hi, this is Amber.
And this is Lisa.
And you're listening to Unexplained Arkansas, a new podcast that explores urban legends, mysteries, and the unsolved in the natural state.
We're just two best friends discussing the unexplained in Arkansas.
Hi. That was even weirder than the first one. I thought, can I make this hi any weirder than the time before? Because this is our second attempt at recording tonight because it just froze. And if it freezes again, we'll just stop and start again.
Edit.
Because that's annoying. Okay. Yeah. I'm not sure what's up with my computer, but everything has been kind of working weird this week. Like Facebook, when it went out on us on Tuesday. That was fun. And I managed to hack off Lisa. And I don't do that very often, but when I do, I can tell. So
I was sleepy. You called me in a horrendous craze because of Facebook.
I thought, oh my gosh, we have so many followers. Someone has hacked into my account. And then I called you and I'm like, someone's hacked into my Facebook. I can't get in. I can't sign in. They're telling me to change my password. And you're like, I'm sure it's fine. And then you look on yours, you're like, trying to change. Yeah. I have to change my password. And you're like, oh. And then I'm like, oh my God, they've got you too. So.
And then I was like, no.
Yeah. Yeah.
No.
I really did. I really panicked. And, and it wasn't just because, because I couldn't get into my Facebook. I think what I was panicking the most about, yes, it was, whatever. But what I was also panicking about was the fact that my whole life for the last 15 years and all my boys, all their pictures, all our moments, all our memories, is all attached to Facebook. And the thought of losing that and losing all my memories or access to them was really scary to me. And that's actually what was going through my head.
Yeah.
That, and I thought somebody was going to post something really weird on our Facebook group. Weirder than what we usually post.
And I was napping at that time.
She was, she was a bear. You don't bother Lisa when she's hungry or sleepy. And when she's hungry and sleepy, you get out of town.
That is true. I get, what is it? Tungry. It's like tired, hungry, tungry people. Tungry. New word for you.
Yeah. Well, and she was like this since high school. She was always like this. We had to stop and feed Lisa. Let's stop and feed Lisa.
Feed me, water me, put me to bed. Yes. All the above. But I was tired from my dance mom weekend.
Yeah.
So there.
Well, I didn't have much of a weekend, so I guess I was just,
You were just your
hyper.
Usual.
Yeah. I was my usual. Yeah. I mean, I'm not as hyper as I used to be when I was younger, but when I get excited or when something happens and I really don't know what's going on, that's my kryptonite. When I don't have an answer, when I don't know why something is happening, I tend to panic.
Yeah. Well, I told you go straight to panic.
Yeah. Straight to panic. It was so funny. You're like, I'm sure it's fine. I'm like, what? What?
I'm like, it's fine. I'm tired. There are more important things that I'm doing. Like sleeping. So,
yeah.
How about I tell you our story and then we tell them all the stuff at the end? What do you think?
Yeah, that sounds good to me.
Are you good with that?
I'm good with that, and I think our audience would probably enjoy that a lot more.
Well, maybe, but this one was interesting because so this is Al Capone's in Hot Springs and his connection to Arkansas.
So this is episode 21, right?
Yes.
We are on episode 21, and it's Al
Crazy.
Capone in Hot Springs. And
yes.
you're in luck, Lisa, because I know nothing about Al Capone
good.
or gangster life
Oh,
in
good.
Hot Springs, because that is something that I have steadily ignored my whole life because I just don't have an interest in it. I went through a period where I really loved The Godfather in college when I was like, in film classes and all that.
Yeah.
And I watched it several times, and I'm like every other film student, oh, it's a masterpiece. But now I'm just like, was it? Yeah.
It is.
Well, I don't know anymore. But all I know about mafia gangster behavior is from the Godfather movie. So let's go into this knowing that fact. That's all I know. Yeah.
Well, good. So this will make things really interesting for me because Daryl is really into the mafia, and I do have my own personal connection. So my dad is Italian, full-blooded Italian. So I am half Italian. His parents came over. I think his mother was from northern Italy. His dad was Sicilian, and they had an arranged marriage, and they came in to New York. Upstate New York is kind of where they landed from Italy. So anyway, and this was his dad. And basically they had him, and then they ended up getting a divorce. But my dad, my maiden name was very Italian. I'm not going to say what it is on air, but I'll tell you later. But my dad's real.
You told me that when we were
but younger. I'm not going to tell them because it's
why? It's not your name.
But I know, but it's I don't know.
What,
it's
a secret?
It's personal. I don't know. I don't know. But anyway, it feels weird. So anyway, he has a very Italian last name. His dad's first name was Giulio, okay? And he is since passed, but Giulio. And they were in Batavia, New York. So this is upstate New York, kind of like the Buffalo area of New York, not New York City. But my dad remembers when he would go visit his dad, because his parents divorced, and he ended up being kind of raised by his stepfather, and that's where our name ended up coming from, which is a very English name or whatever. But anyway, he would go visit his dad, and he swears that his dad was had mafia connections. They never paid for anything. Everybody was always sitting around. Nobody worked. It was just very nobody worked, but everything was paid for. And it was oh, you're Giulio's son. Here you go. It was just in this town, everything was just,
here's some salami.
Yeah. Oh, you love salami. Ambi loves salami, people. But anyway,
I do love salami.
Everything goes back to salami first. But anyway, and then his dad ended up being a professional card player in Las Vegas. So yes,
now that is something that I would really love to do.
That is funny. Okay,
I would love to be a professional card player and just sit. I love casinos.
Really?
Maybe I shouldn't say that. I mean, I don't love losing all my money, but I do. I like the atmosphere. I think it's really cool.
Okay.
Although I've never seen the movie Casino because it was a mafia gangster movie. Yeah, I just don't like mafia gangster stuff. I have not seen what is the one? That's what I was about to say. The closest I ever came to watching Goodfellas was when Community did a Goodfellas episode. So then that's when I finally realized what Goodfellas was about.
Oh my goodness. Okay, well, Daryl loves all that. I think that's why he loves me. But we would watch Goodfellas and The Godfather and Casino. I've seen them all. Gotti, all of them. We've seen them all. He's very into it. So anywho, but I really did not know, saying all that, I really did not know tons about Al Capone. I knew his name. Oh, you were being super loud right now.
It's being loud.
I can hear it's distracting.
I've got some notes over here that I was just sorry about that. I'm sorry.
Yeah, you're just you're on to the next thing. But anyway, so I learned a lot with this. So we're going to start with talking about Al Capone. Okay, so that's where I'm going to start, and then I'm going to go a little bit into the mafia stuff.
Did I just swallow too loud?
I mean, the ice was crazy loud. Seriously.
Okay.
You are being loudness right now. No, I'm just
okay.
Well, no, I'm actually being very real. But anyway, so
Yeah.
Al Capone, so he was born in 1899, okay? And he was born in New York, but his parents had immigrated from Italy. So they had come over and then are you with me? Oh,
no, I'm just thinking you've barely started, and that's the very first thing that I don't know.
Oh, good.
I mean,
good.
I'm just going to start checking off all the things I don't know. I had no idea his parents immigrated from Italy. So, but he was born here.
Yes, he was born here. And he was like the first of like 9 children. They ended up having 9 children. And he was born in Brooklyn, and his parents were actually, at that time, it was tough to make a living, but his dad was a barber. His mom was a seamstress. It discussed in all the articles that I read that they were very, like, they did well for themselves. They weren't dirt poor or anything like that. And his parents were very like upstanding. Like they were not affiliated with any type of gang situation. So.
Well, I have a question.
Yes.
And you may or may not be able to answer this,
okay.
But when did the mafia gangster stuff like start? Like when did it start?
I will get into it. I promise. Yes.
Okay.
So because it actually, like, just to kind of give you a little background, it was like in the 1800s. So
really,
because really, it did, it kind of migrated with the, Italian immigrants. So they brought that whole like all of that is very Italian. So
thanks, Lisa.
Thanks, Dad's parents. In all your family business. But anyway, so yes. But Al Capone, he evidently and his name, he has a very like kind of cute, official, very Italian name to me, but it was Alfonso Gabriel Capone. I know.
Oh, that's cute. That's actually really cute.
Alfonso.
I like that.
I know. I thought it was super cute. And he, of course, they called him Al for short. So
like
I would
the
have
Paul
called
Simon song.
Oh my god. I'm gonna kill you. But he did have a lot of nicknames.
I'm trying to participate. I'm trying to participate in this, and going in, I thought, okay, this is going to be the one I know the least about. So how am I going to participate in this?
And I didn't realize that about you, that you didn't get into gangster stuff. So anyway, that's interesting.
Well, you want to know what I did to prepare? I put up a list of lines from The Godfather so that I could reference them throughout this.
Oh my goodness. Which ones? Please tell me.
Well, the first one is leave the gun, take the cannoli.
Oh, yes. I think a lot of my references, because I don't know if our listeners have said, You've Got Mail. Like every single other movie correlates to the Godfather. Yes. Like every single one. It's like, Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, it's like everything. Yeah. So, yeah. But anywho, everything goes back to The Godfather. So, and Godfather 2 was excellent as well. So anyway, let's not get into the Godfather movie. But
we'll pretend 3 didn't happen.
Yes, please. Okay, so Al, as he was called, so he was they mentioned that he was really a good student, like he was very smart. But that he didn't like authority. So he didn't like to be told.
No, not Al Capone.
Not Al Capone. That doesn't sound right at all. But he didn't really like for people to tell him what to do. And in fact, he was getting in trouble at school, and then they would try to, reprimand him and be like, So he ended up, dropping out in 8th grade, which let's think about this. This would have been, early 1900s. That was probably pretty normal that people. So
no teachers ended up in cement shoes in the river in New York, did they?
Now, one of the one of the articles did say that there was a female teacher that had tried to get on to him, and he ended up slapping her. So,
oh wow,
yikes, yes. So I don't know. Like I only found that in one item because I read several different articles about him, and so some would say different things, but that is true. So he dropped out, and then of course he started, he started to work. And his parents, like I said, they weren't a part of the whole mafia, and I'll kind of dive into the mafia before I get into his components of it. So the mafia had several different names, but it's really like the American mafia, the Italian American mafia. It's an organized crime group, and really it didn't actually get very organized until later on past Al Capone's situation with the mafia. But it was
Interesting.
awesome. I know, yeah. It was just kind of like gangs, basically. And so what happened was all these Italians were pouring into the country, and they just felt like at that time, especially in the city, like they would kind of like live in group, like you kind of lived with your ethnicity, or whatever, or cultural group. Like the
Right.
Italians lived, in a spot, the Irish lived in a spot. So they didn't really feel like at that time that they had a lot of protection. And so, and also this had come from their country as well. Like the mafia, it's not like they made the mafia over here, but it was something that they had in Italy that they kind of brought over. And basically it's like, I'll protect you, if you pay us. So it's kind of bribery, extortion. The mafia is big into that. That's kind of their bread and butter. And then they would roll into things like prostitution and gambling, anything to make money, stealing or whatever. But that's kind of where they started, more in the extortion, gangs, protection of their other Italian, families in the neighborhood or whatever. And I should say, as long as you're being compliant to them. And so another name for the organization would be, have you heard this one? Cosa Nostra.
No, I have not.
So I'd heard that before in some of we watch a lot of mafia stuff, but that
apparently
means
you do. And you don't watch those with me. I mean, we watch lots of movies, but we've never seen a mafia movie.
We have never. We have watched everything else. Everything else. Like we're going to watch Lisa Frankenstein this weekend. That's so just FYI, listeners. But Cosa Nostra means our thing in Italian, or this thing of ours. So it was just kind of like an organization, but mafia, and also like that kind of meant like bravado or being proud, like kind of masculine type thing. So in an exchange for that, but honestly, during Al Capone's early years, it was more of a gang situation. So like I said, he had dropped out of school, and so he needed to get to work. And so he did try several jobs, like anything he could to make money from, it said that he was being a bouncer, working in different places. And so he did eventually get kind of a job. I guess, and I can't tell because there's different things, but it was like he started to work for some of the underground people, like the gang people in New York, and they put him at this club. I believe it's called and it was in Coney Island at first, and then
the American mafia or the Italian, it was alive and well before Al Capone.
Oh yes, so it was beginning. I would say the earliest was even in like the 1880s. Yes, it was coming over. Now, I will say when Mussolini took over in Italy, he was a dictator, a lot of Italians fled Italy. And so even more were coming in. So then it was prevalent. So even though the mafia was around, they really didn't get huge until Prohibition, and we'll talk about that. And then of course, you remember even into the 80s, and then John Gotti was taken down in the 90s. So the mafia had a lot of
I'll pretend I know that.
Okay. Yes. That's funny. So but yeah, so we're going to kind of get into his early career type thing. So like I said, he was trying to work, and he was doing some work, and he went to work for a Frank Yale. And this guy was kind of like a connection into the gang life. Kind of the main person that that Al had met was called Johnny Torrio. So he was kind of a head of the gang situation at that time, or one of the heads, but he was moving over into Chicago like Johnny was. But so Al was still in New York, and he was working for Frank, and he was actually working a club one night, and I've seen different variations of the date, but this one says it was 1917. So Al was working the front door, whatever, the bouncer position. And so this man named Frank, I can't remember his name. It was like I don't even know if I can say it. Cassio. I don't know. A lot of Italian names, but he came in with his sister Lena, and Al made some type of reference about her body and maybe her body parts that were kind of derogatory. And so her brother, Frank, like, he was a much smaller dude, because Al, I don't know if you've seen pictures, he was a big dude. He was only 5'10", but I don't know how much he weighed, but the heaviest he got was like 250, 270. Like, he was a large person. And so Frank was smaller. So he drew out a knife, and he ended up cutting Al in several places on his face, like the left side of his face. So Al it said that he ended up getting 80 stitches from this, but he got the nickname from this that night as Scarface. So he is the original Scarface, and I don't know if you know.
Interesting. I do know Scarface, and I've seen parts of that movie. That's the one with Michelle Pfeiffer and Al Pacino. Yes. So that movie was kind of loosely based, I guess, on Al Pacino, or not Al Pacino, Al. I kept saying that in my head all this week. Al Capone. So yes, and Al Capone was very, like, not happy about these scars. Like, in fact, if you see pictures of him, he was very all about only showing the right side of his face. Like, he was like Mariah Carey. Well, I mean,
okay. I didn't know that about her.
You didn't? I read that she only wants you to photograph one side of her face, not the other. She has a good side.
Okay. Well, I feel like I have a good side, bad side too. But yeah. But Al Capone definitely, like, literally his scars were huge. I mean, 80 stitches were going on.
Yeah,
and
that's a lot. That's a lot.
Yes. And so it was several kind of scars over here. So if you look at pictures, you won't necessarily see them. And if you called him Scarface, he would get mad. Like, that was,
you would end up in cement shoes.
Yeah, you might. Yes. Like,
is that a real thing?
Did not. Cement shoe? I think so, because they wanted them to sink. Yeah, I think that was something real that they did.
Cement. I mean, I don't know. That's expensive. No, I'm kidding. I don't know where I'm going with that.
It is.
Back then, it was probably very expensive.
Yeah, I agree. It did say in his early life, he also, I thought this was interesting. He played some semi-professional baseball, supposedly.
Now, yeah, I think that's interesting too. I had no idea about that.
Yes, and
so pretty much a well-rounded guy into crime.
Yes, okay, that was into crime. Yes, and so he did also. It mentioned so after he became Scarface, and of course he's kind of still working in this kind of underworld atmosphere. He did.
And what's the date table, or what's the timetable right now? What dates are we looking at?
We're still under the 1920s. So
this is like where the flappers and all that come in, right?
Are coming. Yes, that all is coming.
Okay.
Yes, that is turning, and I didn't see anything flapperish about him, but at all. That is coming.
So what are flappers? Do you know what are they technically?
This is more of a Great Gatsby conversation, but I think the flappers, it was kind of like, they kind of wore their hair a certain way, like they had.
I know what they look like, but where did they come from? That's what I want to know.
Like, I think that term just came from being like the type of dress that was going on in the type of atmosphere, wasn't it? That's what I understood.
That's an interesting, yeah.
We'll have to look that one up. But
I thought that they were just flapping around, so that's why they were called flappers.
Maybe I really am remembering that I think it had to do with like their outfits. Like their
It might
outfits
have been.
kind
I
of.
might not be wrong with that silly comment. It might be
Yeah.
because of the flapping outfits. I
Yeah.
don't know. I had to be a flapper in one of the High School Musicals. So,
Yeah.
I think my junior year, I had to dress
Was
up like a
it Guys and
flapper.
Dolls?
It wasn't Guys and Dolls. It was the one we did the year after. It was The Front Page, which is set in the 20s. And I had to be
Okay.
one of the flappers.
I always loved Guys and Dolls. Anyway.
Yeah.
And The Great Gatsby. Love The Great Gatsby. F. Scott Fitzgerald. Oh, The Beautiful and the Damned. Oh, it's such a good book. Anyway,
Thank God for
forward.
Cliff's Notes. I got
that was an excellent movie. Daryl would.
I got through Miss Coleman's class with Cliff Notes on that one.
Oh my goodness, it was a good book. Okay, so moving forward, so in this a little bit later, and I'll tell you even more interesting things in the background, but that we'll find out later. But he did meet a lady, a girl, I should say. Her name was May Josephine Coughlin.
I do like that name.
Yes, and she was like, she was his age. She was young girl, and evidently they got pregnant and before marriage, which was probably, she was Irish Catholic, evidently, and
so that was very taboo at that time period.
Yes, that would have been extremely taboo. And she did go ahead and, I believe, yes. So they were right at that same time period. Like I guess he married her like right after she had their son, but they did have a son, Albert Francis Capone, and they did call him Sonny. And it does say, and I'll kind of tell you more about this later, that Albert lost most of his hearing in his left ear as a child, and again, this will become important later. And in fact, because they were so young, their parents had to sign off on their marriage because they were probably both 19 at that time or 20s.
You had to sign for a 19-year-old marriage. Oh,
evidently, if you weren't 21 back then at the time, I guess in New York, then you had to get your parents' signatures. And they would stay together until he died. So he married her in 1919, I believe, and they stayed together forever. So yeah, for him.
Wow.
Yes. Yeah. So I thought that was really interesting that she stayed with him. Yeah, because you can imagine what all he was into. So
right.
It did say that he, after this time period, he did join this 5 Points gang. It was called the 5 Points gang. So again, back then they had gangs, and they wouldn't get like after his era, like you might remember that there was like 5 big families in the mafia. A lot of people that discuss the mafia, they talk about the 5 big families, but that would not come until later when the mafia got really organized, which was like after Lucky Luciani got involved and stuff. So
yeah, I'm going to need a timeline and a chart to keep up with all these people, because I have no idea.
Yes. Yeah, that's just going to come later. But again, and he did have another interesting component to Al. So he was very he really wanted to dress to impress, and he always wanted to be seen as more of a upstanding business person, even though he was a street thug gang in that kind of life. But he would wear suits that cost $500 back then. So we're talking
dress for the job you want,
I guess. And in our money, that would be a $6,500 suit. Just FYI.
Wow.
Yes. So he was wearing a $500 suit back in the late 1920s or early 1920s. And another name that was given to him was called Snorky. And this sounds stupid, Snorky. But it was evidently a term used for someone that was a sharp dresser. So maybe it was kind of in our terms, bougie.
Okay.
So Al was bougie.
Oh.
Or whatever the kids
I'm going to
say.
start using that. I'm going to be like, Lisa, you look very snorky today.
Okay, thanks. I'll be like, thanks, Amber. You look very not snorky today.
Oh, thanks.
And then I'll laugh. I'm just kidding. Right now, Amber is wearing a Back to the Future t-shirt, and I do love it. That's one of my favorite movies.
Yeah. That's the first thing you said when we got on screen was, you're wearing your Back to the Future t-shirt. And
I like Back to the Future. It wasn't snarky. I'm snorky, but I'm not snarky. Mm-hmm. Anywho, sorry, I took a drink. So now,
so you get to take a drink. I'm gonna take it. I'm gonna take a drink
with your ice situation. So now we're gonna so all this was happening in New York, and like I said, so Johnny Torrio, his name was Johnny Torrio. He was kind of one of the leaders of this 5 Points gang, and so he had moved into the Chicago branch of the mafia. Like, he had moved from New York, and so he actually asked Al to come with him because he wanted Al to become his like companion bodyguard. So at first he brings him over to Chicago to be his bodyguard. Okay.
I'm still thinking about the Paul Simon song. You can call me, what's his name? Betty?
Oh,
Betty, when you call me, you can call me Al. Yeah.
Yes. Okay. I haven't heard that in forever. Okay. And so in Chicago, there was just a lot of like different gangs. Like, you kind of had the South Side, the North Side, you had this 5 Points gang. You had just different gangs going on. And obviously they didn't agree. So they would be like fighting each other, you know, for territory or money or whatever. So, but in Chicago, so in 1920, Prohibition hits. And, you know, Prohibition is where the government came in and said that alcohol was no longer legal. And so that made it a huge enterprise for the mafia. I mean, that made the mafia tons of money, because everybody still continued to drink, like everybody. I don't know what the point of that was at that time. There was just a lot of temperance movements because alcohol was on, you know, like it still is. There was issues with poor families. You know, the husband would spend all his money on, you know, alcohol, and then he'd come home and beat his family. Like, there was just a lot of issues going on. So there was a temperance movement that led to this prohibition. Okay. But all that ended up happening was that the mafia made a huge amount of money, and that actually more people ended up drinking, I think, just because they couldn't, you know? But what would happen is the mafia would import alcohol from places like Canada, places across the seas, from like the South America places. And then they would also like have bootlegging operations going on in kind of the middle of the country where you had farms and spaces to do that. Right. And this is where
it wasn't heavily policed in those areas.
Exactly. And this is where the connection comes in for like even Johnny Torrio to come into Hot Springs, because so that's the connection. There is, they're bootlegging, they're moving liquor all around the country, and this is making them like tons of money. But kind of also, so Capone was like getting very popular in Chicago. He was always giving money, like even though he was, you know, a gang member and doing, you know, illegal items, like he was always smiling. He was very personable. He always gave to charities. If they went places, they tipped heavily. They basically paid off the people in high places, like the mayor of Chicago and then the Chicago PD. So they were basically giving people money just to keep quiet and let them do, you know, all their things, like the prostitution, the gambling, and then of course the alcohol. And again, that alcohol was huge. So they were coming in. So this would have been, so Johnny Torrio introduced Al Capone to Hot Springs. And again, it was for the purpose of kind of getting away from all the fighting. And of course, you know, Johnny was always scared for his life because, you know, they kind of lived that life. You know, you got shot at and people were after you and vice versa. So Hot Springs had kind of become a place like, and I'll kind of go into Hot Springs at that time. So in the 1800s, like later 1800s, so Hot Springs was already developing and had already like built like the bathhouses, because
when did they discover those hot springs? I mean, I guess they always probably
Oh,
knew.
goodness. That
Yeah.
goes back to the 1500s, and then
Oh, wow.
DeSoto coming in, Hernando DeSoto, finding
Look
the
at
hot
you.
springs.
I'm the
Yes.
former Arkansas history teacher, and you just rattled that off. Wow. I'm
I
impressed.
surely did. Thank you. So, yes, so the hot springs had been there, and these springs are just natural springs. It's about 1 million gallons of 143 Fahrenheit waters just coming out of the ground into these, like, at that time it would have just been, creeks, but now in these days it's channeled into, there's fountains, and if you haven't been to hot springs, if you're from a different area or country, oh, I hear screaming at your house. I hear
It's the baby. It's just the baby.
you gotta see the baby. You have got that's a segue. You've got to see hot springs. It really has everything. But at that time, it was, people thought the springs healed people way back. Even the Native Americans would hang out in hot springs, and it was kind of a place, even if the Native Americans were fighting other tribes, like they would come in and rest and like relax, and it was a place of peace or whatever. And so, like at that time, whenever, like in the 1800s, the hot springs, the city, was actually the first federal reserve in America, period. We're talking 40 years before Yellowstone even.
Wow.
Yes.
That's crazy.
So the federal government understood how important these springs were, and they wanted to preserve them. So that's what happened. And then hot springs ended up coming, the city, because of these springs, they started to build, in the 1800s, they built the bathhouses. So those bathhouses that are still there today, they've been renovated and such, but they're old. Like,
oh yeah,
they've been there for a long time. So that city was growing up in the later 1800s.
I really enjoy going to hot springs still.
Yes.
I mean, I love it. I love to. Now I honestly haven't been to the bathhouses in a long time. That's something that women without kids or responsibilities get to do. Not people like me, but not me. I don't get to do things like that anymore. But I do love it. Just the historic, culture there to me.
Yes.
I love it.
It's really cool. It's just the bathhouses themselves, and I'm just focusing on like this time frame because we're going to do a lot of episodes like in hot springs, so I'm going to touch on that period. But yes, so all those bathhouses like were there. There were hotels. There was like casinos. So I will say in that time frame, gambling was illegal in the state of Arkansas. In the early 1900s, they did have the horse racing going on, which was the only legal gambling. So the horse racing, you could bet on the horses. So when Al came to town, like there was a lot going on. Like there was a club called the Southern Club, the Ohio Club, which is still there.
Oh yeah, I've been there. I've been to the Ohio Club.
I've never been in there, but I've passed by it a million times. But all the bathhouses were there when Al came. And then also what was called, like when he first came into town, it was probably early 1920s. So the original Arlington Hotel had burned. So it was being rebuilt, but he would stay at the Majestic.
When did the original burn?
So it looked like the original was built like in the late 1800s, and then it burned. I think it said 1922 or something that it burned down because it was ready to go by 1924, I believe. The new one.
Now backtrack to the Majestic, and I'm really interested in that one too.
To the what?
The Majestic. I've stayed at the Majestic. It just closed like 15 years ago, didn't it?
I don't see. The Majestic is gone, so they tore it down, but I don't know when. I never stayed at the Majestic, so but the Majestic was that old to where it was there before the new Arlington was there, if that makes sense.
Yeah,
and so when he
I know
first
it was an old hotel.
Yes, like when he came to town, that's where he stayed, and then like in December of 1924 is when the Arlington was new. Like
I'm very surprised though that they tore the Majestic down.
I know, it would have been so neat to see.
Isn't that a historical landmark? I mean, it's been there for 100 years. Al Capone stayed there.
I don't know why. I don't know why they tore it down, but it was interesting. So okay, so in that time frame, so he was coming. He started to come, and so like Hot Springs was kind of, again, like I said, it had bars, saloons, prostitution, gambling. So even though these items were like against the law, the mayor at that time, I believe his name was McLaughlin, and then the police like all turned their blind eye because they could make a lot of money. Of course, it brought in the gangster people. It brought in people from all over the place who would tip. And so like when Johnny and Al came, like people were fine with it as long as they did not bring the crime. Okay. They didn't want the shootings. They didn't want the murders. And as long as they went with that, as long as it was just like a peaceful kind of vacation situation for them, they were fine with it. So, you know, you keep to the gambling, you keep to the other. So the gangsters kind of basically they treated Hot Springs as their vacation home. Their vacation.
Oh, wow.
Yes, that's what they were doing. And of course they were intermingling it with a little business because they were doing the bootlegging and whatever. And it does talk about how Al Pacino did buy into the Southern Club.
Al Pacino?
Al Capone. He did buy into
Al
buy
Pacino.
into some of those things. Yes. Al Pacino. Poor Al Pacino. But anyway, so that's kind of the connection.
Poor Al Pacino. He just had another kid.
Are you serious?
Yes.
Are you serious right now?
Yeah, he had another kid a few months ago.
How old's his wife? Like 27?
I don't know. I mean, how old is he? Like 100? I have no idea.
He's in his 70s. I mean,
gosh, no. He's got to be in his 80s. You keep talking. I'll Google the age of Al Pacino.
Okay. That is shocking. But anyway, I guess it's not shocking. I mean, a man can have children all he wants to for as long as he wants. But anyway,
he is 83.
He is 83.
He's 83 years old.
Oh my goodness. Okay. That is shocking. So I didn't know he was that old. So anyway, so like I said, so Al was coming with Johnny and then that was his introduction into Hot Springs. I will say, I'll kind of finish up the mafia part. So Johnny ends up kind of getting into a turf war with some of the gangs in Chicago. And they end up he kills another head guy and then they come for him. So I believe it was 1926. Johnny's he gets shot up and he ends up living.
Oh, wow.
They come after him. I think he gets shot 6 times and he ends up living, but he's like, you know what? I'm done. I'm done with this life. And
I think I would be too.
Oh my goodness, that's insane. So he ends up going back to Italy. Johnny moves to Italy. He's going to retire in Italy. He's done with the whole, mafia thing. And so Al becomes the crime boss. So he takes over. So Johnny was kind of the head guy of the 5 Points gang, and now it's Al. So as of 1926, he is the man. So, and he thought he was the man. And he was, because he kind of knew this whole situation, he would hide out a lot more than Johnny did. He did not spend near as much time in Chicago because he was scared. And he did have they talk about how his automobile was presidential quality. It was I don't know how many pounds of steel. It was basically bulletproof. He drove around in a bulletproof car.
Yeah.
When you're a mafia boss,
you drive around in a bulletproof car.
So he was wearing a $500 suit and he had a bulletproof car and he was extremely bougie. But when he would come to hang out in Hot Springs, he, once, because he was the boss now, and it would be 1926. So the Arlington Hotel is open and the Arlington Hotel is still there. It's wonderful. They're doing some renovations to the outside. But anyway, he wanted to stay at the Arlington because it was the nicest hotel in town, especially at that point. And he would rent out the whole 4th floor. And his room that he preferred was Suite 443, which if you're on our Facebook page or Instagram, I did go to the Arlington this past weekend, this past weekend. And I did a video right in front of the Al Capone suite because later on it would become quote unquote his suite. He stayed there every single time. And like I said, he rented out the whole floor. And the Arlington Hotel is 600 rooms.
Right.
Each floor probably has 50 rooms per floor,
Yeah,
maybe. I don't even
probably.
know.
So,
It's big.
question.
It's a big place. Yeah.
So when you were on the floor of Al
Mm-hmm.
Capone's room, did you
Yes.
feel weird? I mean, was there any kind of did you feel creeped
Did I
out?
feel Al Capone?
Yes.
Did I
Well, I
feel
mean,
snorky?
like snorky. Well, did you have any like paranormal vibes,
Mm.
being in there with all that, rich culture and history of mafia and all that. So,
Okay, well, I'll just tell you my experience. So I went to that floor and I was looking for his room, and I kind of started out at the other end, and this woman comes out. So you can have animals at the Arlington, which blows my mind. But anyway, she has this huge like golden doodle thing, and it was super cute. But anyway, she is on the phone super loud with customer service somewhere. I don't know about what, and she is griping.
I'm sorry, but I just got a mental image of that. And lady, if you're
Yes.
listening, I'm so sorry, but that just sounds so funny.
I mean, I had no idea who I was trying to do my video, and I was actually like at the other end of the hall from her, and she was so loud, like she was going to the elevator, that I had to delay my video. I was like, okay, I'm just going to sit here and wait. Because she was like so mad about, it was a delivery. She was expecting a delivery and it didn't come.
Doodle.
I don't know. But it was super funny. But no, I didn't get any vibe. I mean, it was and I have stayed at the Arlington before.
Yeah.
And nothing, I mean, I didn't feel creepy. I will say it is the rooms. I don't know the last time they were renovated. I really pray that they renovate them soon. But I just, it was old and I love that, but it was not up to Lisa par.
Well, I've stayed there a few times over the last, over the last 5 years. And I got the same kind of vibe that you could tell. I mean, it's an older hotel.
It's old. It's old and
you're not going to get.
And it's huge.
It's huge, but it's the experience.
Huge.
To me,
it is the experience.
The experience makes it. So.
And I am glad I stayed. Like, I'm glad we did it. But even Elle was like, "Oh, I can't do it again." But I will say that Al Capone.
Wait,
I did watch.
Is this 443? Is that the number for Al Capone's room?
That's the suite.
That's the suite.
So that's the suite number. So that's the room number. Yes. And when you, like, I have a video of it. So we've got like you can probably, it has like a plaque on his door now.
Yeah.
So like,
I watched your video.
Okay. Did you really? I'm shocked. I watch your videos every morning. Ambi does her reels in the morning, which I appreciate doing because I am not a morning person. That is not something.
Well, it's the only time I have full makeup on and I don't look like a big, drug out mom, like I'm tired and exhausted with big circles under my eyes. I mean, morning time, that's it. I look good at 8:00 and then never again. And never again.
Whatever. Well, anywho, yes. Yes, to answer your question, it's 443, and I didn't feel any vibes. I will say, so he liked that floor because
I wonder why. Oh, you're gonna tell us.
I'll tell you. I'm gonna tell you. So he liked that particular floor, and he would rent out the whole floor because that floor has direct access to the spa. So the Arlington Hotel has its own spa, and and you can locate it on that floor. Like easily, like you just go, he probably just went straight from his room down this little, it's like this little half stairway, and then boom, you're in the spa. And the spa probably looks the same as it did back then. I mean, seriously, it's really cool and old looking. I love walking around. I love walking around. And you can go, so even if you don't stay at the Arlington, like you can go walk around, you can go eat, you can hang out on their big veranda up front. They have a bar and music.
Oh, I love their little bar restaurant area is just to die for. It's my absolute favorite. I've got so many great memories from that little area. Even when we weren't staying in the Arlington, we would go and we would just hang out there. Oh, yeah. I love that. I love it.
It's really beautiful.
Yeah.
It's really neat.
I don't understand why they've never filmed a movie at the Arlington.
I don't know either because it really is picturesque and
it is, and they've kept it just the way that it was.
It was. Yes. And I will say, so when you walk in, and I said this in my video, it smells amazing. Every single time you walk in that lobby, you are hit with like this floral bouquet of
I know.
Lilac and jasmine or something. I mean, it is the most beautiful scent. I want to know what it is because I need that in my house.
It's weird that you said that because I used to get soap there. I used to always
Uh-huh.
stop, even when I wasn't staying, I would stop and I'd buy soap there, and it was the same
Uh-huh.
scent that you're kind of,
The same scent.
that you're
Oh,
talking about. So,
it's just a lovely scent. Like, so if you're visiting, go like hang out. You can book spa stuff. You don't have now. I will say that if you want to stay in the Al Capone suite, which there are videos on YouTube about that show you the whole suite, because also supposedly there is a door. So in the back of Al Capone's closet in the master bedroom off of like his living room, dining room suite, there is a door that supposedly goes like straight down a stairwell so he could easily get out of the hotel. And there is a door
so in case Al Capone had to jet, they had a out for him. Okay.
Yes, he had his own private entrance exit that was very like his own. So that was also, I guess, why he liked that room. And I don't know if there's any other, I will talk about some other suites there, but you can stay at the Al Capone suite. So the normal rooms run around $100 a night, but the Al Capone room runs around $300 to $400
Oh,
a
wow.
night. Yes. So you can stay in it, and it looks super nice. Like it's probably worth it, especially if you want that whole thing. And it has a magnificent view of the whole like town, like the whole, like, because the Arlington is just really like the best part of Central Avenue, which is like the main street of Hot Springs. And so it's just a really amazing pretty
Oh,
view.
wow.
So
I'm looking at pictures of the Al Capone
are you
suite.
looking?
It's nice. It's really
It's
nice.
really cool. It is really cool. So also to finish up, there were always rumors circulating that Al Capone like had an actual home in Hot Springs. And I did like read an article about that, and it said like supposedly he had a home on a lake, and it said that probably came from, he did have friends that had lake homes, so he would stay with them. And then I think even his brother would like kind of do like a getaway, because again, Al was 1 out of 9 children, and 2 of his brothers actually went to work for him. And they might have had a place or whatever, but he knew people with places, but he actually never had a lake home there. And in fact, the lakes weren't even quote unquote invented by the dam until he was like in prison. And we'll talk about that. Yeah. So anywho, he never owned a place. He would only stay at the Arlington, and he would rent out the whole floor. So that's what he would do. That was his thing. And then also there's all these rumors. And in fact, we posted about the tunnels. So there are tunnels under the main streets in Hot Springs. So those are, documented on YouTube and various things, but they came about because like the spring itself, it was part of like this creek at the time. So they built like all of these hotels were built around like on the opposite sides of this creek. So the creek ran in the middle, and then they basically had to build bridges over this huge creek, if you can imagine that. And so the government, the federal government made a reserve. And so they came in and gave Hot Springs a grant to build, like to pave over that. So you didn't have that situation going on, because basically
tunnels.
It made tunnels by doing that. And basically that is Central Avenue that they built.
Oh, that's interesting. Ooh, that is really cool. Okay, so what was that one follower getting so up in arms about?
Well, I think I don't think he was reputing that. Like, we did our post, and then we had someone just talk about how, all the tunnel stuff is bogus. But I think he was more or less talking about
his words were BS.
Yes, he did. He said BS. And I was like, well, I was just showing a picture because I had heard.
Dude, seriously, let's just be chill here.
Yeah, I don't know. And he knew, and I think he knew a lot about these tunnels, evidently. But basically, the tunnel setup was to cover that situation, because it was like sewer going. It was smelly. It was. You had all these bridges. It was just bad. And so the government fixed it, and it created these tunnels, because obviously they have changed their whole sewer system since then. But I think what he was against is people talking about how Al Capone would utilize the tunnels to get out of town or whatever, which I I did watch a video. Okay, so the Arlington is right across the street from what used to be the Southern like casino, or it was like the Southern club. Okay, it was the big to do place. Well, now it's a wax museum. Okay,
Oh yeah,
but
I've been there.
yes, but under and in the back, hey, just FYI for people, in the back of the wax museum is a whole like mob like museum back there. But anyway,
Cool.
but underneath the wax museum, there is an entrance to these tunnels. And so what it said was that Al could make his way from from his room at the Arlington, he could pop up at the Southern Club. That was the point. So he could go under the street, which I totally believe, and pop up at the club. So, and this weekend, we were told that one of the entrances, or maybe one of the exits, was in Whittington Park there in Hot Springs. But when I got on YouTube, it showed a lot of entrances. So there were several entrances either under the buildings or out in the parks. There was another one. So I'll kind of post these things too. So just FYI, that's the whole tunnel thing. It's
I was
not
wondering.
like
That was like, I was excited though. I'm like, oh my gosh, it's our first squabble on Facebook. That's so exciting. Thanks,
that's
dude.
so funny. Yeah, it was funny. I mean, I don't know. It's just an innocent post that he did not like for some reason. He was like,
okay,
I mean,
so let me say
whatever.
right now, we are not historians. We don't have
No.
PhDs in history.
Mm-mm.
I'm an old school teacher who taught Arkansas history at one point, and I mean, I don't pretend to be some big important historian, whatever, blah blah. I just have a real interest in my state, and I have a real interest in the things that go on here. Period.
And this went on, and this was interesting. So
yes, very.
So yeah. And I am totally like, obviously on every story we do, we take the information that we get from the internet and books and movies and videos and everything else. So.
And microfilm from newspapers.
Newspaper, everything. So anywho, but that's kind of the tunnel story. So it's nothing, conspiratory. It was done by the government for a reason, for sanitation reasons, and then being able to get around. So
simmer down now. Everybody simmer down.
If you want to go to our Facebook group, follow us, and then look at the post. There you go. But so moving on. So that's kind of the whole Al Capone's connection to Hot Springs. And he, like I said, he would continue to hang out in Hot Springs, like all from all the 20s. Okay. And then I'll kind of tell you what happens to him next. Are you ready?
Oh yeah. I feel like it's not good.
It gets a little salacious. So,
oh really? I like a little salaciousness with my podcast.
I know. It's very salacious. And I didn't know any of this because I really didn't know, tons about him. So anywho, so he, of course, the government is wanting to always take down thugs, and of course they know that he's making a lot of money. He's not reporting it. It's just really hard for the government. They're trying to fight all the bootlegging. They've got the whole Untouchables thing going on where remember that what's his name, the Ness, Elliot Ness is he's trying to fight all this bootlegging and take down the bad guys because they're
He's probably never had a really good Long Island iced tea then. He's trying to take down alcohol.
He may not. Amber, you transgress. But anyway,
sorry.
It was illegal, Amby, and so and everybody was
that
just
made
kind
people
of
want it more.
Well, it really did. It kind of everything about that whole period, which the Prohibition period lasted from 1920 to 1933, so 13 years of just craziness, and really a lot of bad things were happening. Al Capone's group, I mean, he would just bomb places. If he didn't get his way about something, or if a politician was against, I mean, he would just kill people.
Allegedly.
That were in his. No, pretty much documented. Documented. He would bomb the crap out of people, and then but he was still kind of like Al Capone was kind of seen as a Robin Hood figure for a long time in the 20s. But something would happen February 14th of 1929 that would change Al Capone's future.
Are
And
you going to say it, or do I need to Google it? Because I think I can Google it faster.
you need some patience. Okay. So it's called the Valentine's Massacre. Okay.
Oh, yeah. I forgot about that.
Yes. So even though at that time, Al, he had been spending a lot of time in Hot Springs as his vacation spot, or really his hideaway. It's really a hideout. Let's be honest. But then he started spending time in Palm Springs, and we'll kind of get into that. He was down in Miami during this time, but there was a lot of gang wars going on, and he needed to retaliate against some people. And so what happened was he gets like 4 hitmen, 2 are dressed up as policemen, and they basically, what is that? Sabotage some 7 other gang leaders or whatever. And they just open fire. So they think that they're police that are lining them up, that have caught them, doing wrong, and they end up just like pulling out machine guns and like killing them.
Oh, wow.
And so, so 7 men were struck down, and this is in the streets, in Chicago on Valentine's Day in 1929. So once this happened, Al Capone went from being looked at as Robin Hood to being looked at as public enemy number 1. That was his new moniker. That was his new nickname. He was no longer Scarface or Snorky. He became public enemy number 1. They also called him like the big one. That was kind of funny, but anywho, he had a lot of little names. But that was cute. So he was no longer favored, and there was such a public outcry that the government was on a tear to take him down. So after that happened, this is 1929, they do try to start pinning things on him. Does that make sense? So let me fast forward. So he is basically the first thing they try to get him on, because they're trying to just do everything they can to pin him on. I think they get him for like a weapons charge. Is kind of the first thing that they pin him on. So they kind of indict him for that, and he ends up maybe serving a little bit of time for that, like a year. Okay. So as soon as he's out from that, then they're trying to pin other stuff on him. Like the next thing is like vagrancy charge, because in 1929 they did pin that concealed weapon thing, and he went to Eastern State Penitentiary in Philadelphia. So he spent about a year in jail, and that's the one that's like haunted, isn't it? Isn't it that one?
Yeah, it is.
Okay.
I mean,
so
allegedly.
So they got him for that. And then as soon as he came out of prison, so that was like a short little stint for just, concealed weapon. Because like I said, they're trying to nab him on everything. So then they get him on a vagrancy charge, and they trying to indict him. And this was in Florida, but they spend a whole like series, but they end up acquitting him after a 3-day trial. So then they're trying to come after him on tax evasion.
Oh.
So basically, Al was not stupid. Like, he kind of knew that other gangsters were getting in trouble over not paying taxes on their income, because this is all illegal money. I mean, obviously. So he was trying. In fact, he would have his tax person like pay based on like $100,000 salary, supposedly. But the government knew that he was raking in millions, like millions of dollars. Basically, he would be, in today's time, he would have been a billionaire. Okay.
Wow. A billionaire?
A billionaire. So they knew he had all this money. And so basically they could come after him based on what was called the Volstead Act, which is where like you can kind of put together a case against someone that shows that they were evading taxes based on their lifestyle. Because how can you prove all this illegal income? Does that make sense? But they could prove that he had all of these houses. He was very, bougie. He had all the stuff.
Yes.
He was snorky. Like, he had all this stuff. And so they could prove like that way. In fact, they ended up indicting him. And the judge, like, they ended up I think he tried to plead guilty to this. So this was another trial like in 1931. And the judge came back and was like, no, I'm not going to let you plead. Like you're going to jail. He wanted to get him for the most. So they went against him for 22 counts of income tax evasion from the years of 25 to 29. And so, but they ended up, getting him because they wouldn't let him plea out.
Oh, this is a nice thing to talk about right at tax time.
Oh, good. Yeah. So they ended up getting him for a $215,000, that he owed. Plus he had to spend 11 years in federal prison. So it was like $215,000 is what they felt like he owed the government based on just those 4 years. And he did have to pay a fine of $50,000 plus court costs. So that's a lot. I mean, that was a lot of money back then. So they ended up, so he was 33 years old. He is finally indicted on a large sentence. So the first place that they send him to is Atlanta. It's a U.S. penitentiary in Atlanta. And upon getting there, he was officially diagnosed with syphilis and gonorrhea.
Oh, nice.
Let that sink in. He was also experienced withdrawal symptoms because he had a cocaine addiction.
Okay.
And because of all that cocaine snorting, he had a perforated nasal septum. So he was a hot mess.
Sounds like he was a hot mess.
Yes, evidently he had not been going. In fact, they said that he probably got syphilis and gonorrhea, had been dealing with that and showed symptoms since he was 18 years old. So he probably had it, which is why his son ended up losing hearing. So his son, he passed it on to his son. Yes. So he had it before he was married and before he had his son. So he was dealing with these sexually transmitted diseases for a long time. And this would come back. We're going to get to that very soon. But anyway, in Atlanta, he was kind of, in this penitentiary in Atlanta, he was kind of treated like a king.
Well, I mean, that sounds right. I mean, it sounds like what would happen to Al Capone if he went to prison. I mean, not to say it was right, but it sounds like what probably did happen.
Well, and it was said that a lot of the people, like one of his like roommate there in his cell was like a small time criminal for him and protected him. So he was being protected. He was being like very protected there. So what they ended up doing was they transferred him to Alcatraz, which had just opened.
Wow. Okay. So I know a little about that, not much.
Yes, he went, and they called that The Rock. Remember?
The movie, yes, The Rock.
The Rock, escaping from Alcatraz. So that happened in 1934. He was transferred out there, and he received no special treatment there. And in fact, he was stabbed. In 1936, he was stabbed and superficially wounded by an inmate.
Interesting.
Now it did say, so once he got to Alcatraz, like his syphilis became like, basically, if you do not treat syphilis, it becomes like, it goes to your brain. So he had neurosyphilis, and so it started to progressively erode his mental faculties. I mean, he was basically losing cognitive functions. And so like they just needed him gone. I mean, basically he was spending a lot of time in the hospital section. He was confused, disoriented. He had no clue. So they did eventually get him out of there and transferred him to like a federal correctional hospital place in California in like 1939. And he was just, I mean, he was deteriorating. And in May, like his wife, May, in 1939, like after that happened, she just appealed to the court to get him paroled. So his mental capacity was said to be that of a 12-year-old by this time.
That is so sad.
Is it?
Well, I mean, I feel for anybody that goes through something like that, but oh my gosh.
I mean, yeah. So anyway, so this is 1939. So the only way to really, quote unquote, cure syphilis is with penicillin. Well, penicillin was found like in the late 20s, but it did not go into like production for the masses until 1942.
The 40s, yeah.
Yes. So at that time, so basically upon his release from like prison or whatever, they fully got him out because of his, situation. So he was referred to John Hopkins in Baltimore for the treatment of his, they call it syphilic paresis. But because of his unsavory reputation, John Hopkins refused to treat him. They were like, I'm not treating you. Yes. They did transfer him to Baltimore's Union Memorial Hospital, who did treat him. And Capone was said to be so grateful for the compassionate care that he donated 2 Japanese weeping cherry trees to the hospital. And completely like from his Palm Island mansion. So I will talk about his mansion real fast. Okay. So before he got arrested in 1931, I guess he was tired of going to Hot Springs and he wanted to hang out in Miami. And I guess he was tired of paying all the hotel bills and whatnot. So he paid $40,000 for a mansion in Palm Springs. So this would have been around 1928 or so. Okay. So this place was awesome. That same place now, so basically they tore down the home and now it's an empty lot. And that lot where his home did sit is for sale at the moment for $28 million.
No way.
I'm not even joking.
Wow.
It is insane to me. So just FYI. But anyway, so after he gets out of the hospital, they do start to treat him in 1942 with the penicillin, but basically his condition cannot be reversed. I mean, the damage to his brain was done. So I guess the penicillin could help maybe not spread it or whatever,
Penicillin can only do so much.
Oh, well, that's true. Yes. And so basically he would be kind of in and out of the hospital. I mean, because he got out of prison in 1939, and it said that he was still dealing with his physician into 1946. In 1947, he did go home to his Palm Island mansion, that is in like Miami, Florida or whatever. It did say in 1947, he did have a stroke. He did survive that stroke, but he did contact bronchio pneumonia, and that kind of put him into cardiac arrest. And so by January of that, it looks like that year, well, yeah, it said that he passed away. So yes. So he died from actually the bronchio pneumonia, but all of that kind of started with the syphilis and gonorrhea. So really syphilis killed him, but in a long-term situation. And they did end up burying him in Chicago. So yes, so that is the Al Capone story.
Okay. Well, that was really cool. And that was a lot of stuff I didn't know. I didn't know I will say 98% of that I did not know.
Well, I learned a lot too.
Oh, okay. Well, good. I'm glad
about
you did.
Al Capone. Yes.
Yeah. I've never had a real interest in gangster stuff. So this is a lot of new information, and I love hearing new stories. I didn't realize that Hot Springs was still going strong in the crime and whatnot till the 1960s. That's new information as well.
Yes. Evidently, that's what I read and understood. So basically he came in and put a stop to all that. So yes. So I really enjoyed that episode. It was fun. Like I said before, it has all of the components of, syphilis and gonorrhea and,
Well, okay. So now let's talk about something without the components
without
of syphilis.
STDs.
Yes. Okay. So let's talk about where we're at. So we're on episode 21. This was episode 21. And so we have looked again at all of our analytics, which is the fun thing that I get to look at on our board. And we have right now 363 Spotify followers. And
yay.
yes, that is awesome. And we
what
have
are our impressions?
our impressions is 26,221.
Oh, yay.
That's a lot. That is a lot. And we have some new comments, so let's go ahead and read those. I'm going to start with the buried treasure of Enola comments and just kind of go from there. So, which that was one of my favorites. And, I went into that one not knowing a lot about Enola, but I've had more people contact me about that than probably anything else. I have one that contacted me because he's wanting to write a book about it, about the Jonathan Harden story. So I thought that was very, very cool. I'm glad that he shared that with me.
Yes. And remember, Enola spelled backwards is alone.
Yes. That, to me, I still think that's the coolest part.
Yeah. It's creepy. Oh, I think I got a little chill.
Okay. So...
what was the comment?
So the first one is on Enola, and it's from Charlene, and it says, "Good work, girls. Enjoy listening." So thank you, Charlene.
Thank you, Nana. That's
that's Nana.
Daryl. Yeah, that's Nana.
Okay.
She's a big fan, and I love her.
Yes,
she's a big fan.
Okay, so then these are from Ruby Stapleton, part 1. Okay, we have. I believe this is from Sylvia. Okay. I believe this was a year that they may have canceled Halloween, which they didn't technically cancel it, but they were really wanting to. They were close to canceling it. They were pretty much like the whole town of Searcy was kind of, bugging at the time, and they didn't want to do Halloween. So
and
I think they
requested a what do you call that? A curfew.
Like a soft curfew. I mean, they didn't enforce it. They just asked. Yeah, they asked everyone to. Okay, so then we have another comment from Kim, and it says, "Yes, please, merch. Y'all, this is so good. I had no idea about this case, and now I'm obsessed. It needs to be solved. I just love y'all so much." So that's from Kim.
Love you, Kim.
And then we have one from Trissy, Kentucky, because it's KY. And Trissy says, "Please stop saying okay, yeah, and while the story's being told. We will try our best. We will." Yes, yeah.
No promises.
No promises. But we are new to podcasting, so that is, this is something. Oh, I just said, and I say that a lot too. Man, let's add that to the list too. But we do try. And we're new to the podcasting editing process and things like that. So I think that as we go along with this podcast, it'll get better. The sound will get better, the quality, all that, because it has. Every single episode, I think, production-wise, has gotten better than the one before. So hopefully we'll get rid of some of those ums for you.
Maybe.
Yeah, maybe. Lisa's not convinced.
I don't know. Now, I say a lot. I say Daryl's always looking at me. Literally, I mean, there's just stuff.
You do say literally a lot because one of my best friends lives in Portland, Oregon, and she's wanting to help us because she's an artist and she's wanting to help us do our merch. And she goes, "How about we put literally on the
or allegedly?"
No, and then she said allegedly, but first she's like, "Literally, let's put literally." So because we both say literally all the time as well. So we'll try to work on our transitions and be more palatable. Okay, so we have had some countries that have came aboard the Amber and Lisa show. So
bring it.
Yeah. So here are all the different countries.
Is there still 21? It got to 21. But
I think it's 21, yes. Okay. So it's Canada, Poland, Spain, France, Thailand, Australia, Finland, Ireland, Germany, New Zealand, Turkey, Italy, United Kingdom, Sweden, Switzerland, Norway, Slovakia, Greece, and Mexico. Oh, and the Netherlands. So there you go, 21.
Yes, 21. Yes. Love it. Lucky. Yes. Is that a lucky number? I don't know. But this is our 21st episode. So we have 21 countries.
Oh, wow. Oh, my gosh. Yes.
My mother
crazy.
was big on 21 because she, with partners, she had Century 21. And then so
nice.
She was big on that 21. But anyway.
So maybe 21's our lucky number. Right.
Maybe. We'll see.
Okay, so that's all we
Okay.
have for this episode, but we do have a mini episode coming up later this weekend, and I'm excited about that. So we're going to
Yes.
go from something I knew nothing about, which is gangsters and mafia, to something Lisa knows nothing about, which is cows.
Oh,
And
I know a
cattle.
little bit, Ambi.
What do you know about cows?
That you can call them a heifer. I do call Amber a heifer sometimes. I'm like, you heifer.
Yes.
It's a term of endearment before you
that
jump
is
on me.
true.
It goes
yeah,
way back.
I was
Way
just
back.
say, we called each other heifers back in high school.
Oh,
but
back
we
in the
will
90s.
in the 90s.
Your favorite
that was my
era.
that's my favorite era. Yeah.
Your favorite. Tell them to rate us. Please rate.
Yes, please rate us.
A good one. Maybe.
And we're aware of the so please, so you don't have to say anything. But so please, we hear it too. But please rate us. We would really appreciate it. We do have a library tour that is going to kick off at the end of May, and we will be going to local. Are you not aware of this tour? No, I'm kidding.
No, I'm not going to be on the tour.
Whatever.
It's just Amber.
Yes, it's just me. But we will be going from library to library in Arkansas and talking about podcasting, how to start your own podcast, but also the unexplained coolness of Arkansas. So we will be heading to a library near you. Starting the end of May. I mean, that's cool. We are bringing back libraries.
Yes, and we did get we have so you guys are great. We do have some listeners that are inviting us to things, and so we did get an invite that we'll talk about soon, so that way maybe we can go and invite others to meet us in person.
Yes, that would be great.
Yeah. So
we have several we have several listeners that we talk to on the regular now, and I think that's really neat. So yeah.
Cool.
Michael, I'm talking to you. Yeah.
Yeah. Michael. Oh,
there's another Michael too. There's two Michaels.
Oh,
yeah.
Two Michaels and
there's Michael
Sean.
1 and Michael 2 is what I call them.
I got a James. We've got some really just wonderful
interested people.
Yes.
I mean, they like what we're doing,
interacting with us.
Interacting, and we love all the interactions on Facebook. And I'm not complaining about the guy that got really upset about the tunnels, because that I find it so funny, because he was just very, very very serious about this tunnel situation in Hot Springs. And I'm like, okay, dude, whatever. But that just kind of makes the conversations move, and I think that's great. Have some discourse. Just keep it nice.
Yeah.
Keep it nice, everybody.
All we ask for is be kind and courteous in your aggravated state of tunnels. So if you have an issue with tunnels, you just need to tell us about it. So because
I don't have an
all
issue
about listening to tunnels.
Yes, I don't have an issue with tunnels or underground spaces unless there's a clown down there, or
oh my goodness,
6 turtles. I mean, then
don't even get me started.
Turtles.
6 Ninja Turtles. Now, if Ninja Turtles are down there eating pizza, I'm all about it. But if it's clowns, no way. But anywho, well, follow us on this stuff. Email us. Yes, share. Just continue to support us. We're working on so much right now, so much that we will be able to tell you in a little bit. So, hopefully
this
in the next
is a little
month.
premature. So. Yes. So stay tuned. There is what are we calling this? An unexplained short? Is that what we decided?
Oh, yes. Stay tuned for the unexplained short.
There's an unexplained short coming at you real soon. Y'all have a great night.
Love ya. Bye.